I don't think I quite understand the question. So do I get to interact with the?
Have you met James Spader and
Yeah, I think I have met James at one time or another through my 30 years somewhere, but it wasn't any time recently. It's been back. Yeah.
I wasn't sure how much the Stargate cruise from the movie to the TV?
Oh, yeah, no. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I've met a few of the actors from the original movie from Stargate, and the producer and writer was Dean Devlin, and Dean's one of my dear friends, and I worked for him on Leverage. He produced and wrote Leverage up in Portland, and so yeah, Dean's a really good guy, and Eric Avari was in the original, and who's the good-looking boy? He was the young kid. Yeah, he was the young, good-looking kid in Stargate the movie. Cruz, Alexis Cruz. So there's a few people that I know from. Thank you. There's a few people that I know from the movie, but yeah. Question. Hey. Okay, well, that's a story. That's okay. What was my first? Okay, how I get into acting. Okay, well, it was I was living in my hometown, which is Mahopac, New York. It's about 40 miles north of New York City, and I had graduated high school by the skin of my teeth, and I wasn't a very good student. Never was. And I knew how to, I knew how to read, and I knew how to, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And I loved cars, so I thought I'd be an auto mechanic. And then we had a after school thing or wild extracurricular, like come on, Jay, craft stuff. Like you could go for carpentry, you could go for auto mechanics, you could go for that. And it was a place called Bosie's. And I went to Bosie's for that, for auto mechanics. Got sick of it, didn't like it very much. And I was working in a gas station. And a friend of mine from high school, now, high school had gone like 2 years behind me at that point. And this guy came into the gas station, his name was John Miller, and he used to play the guitar and sing. And I said, "Hey man, how you doing? What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I'm playing my guitar and singing up at the Zigzag Inn, which was a local club within 15 miles of the house." And he said, "I'm also doing a play down in Yorktown Heights, which is another town in the opposite direction." And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "We're doing this play called Mr. Roberts." And he said, "You should come down and you should read for it." And I go, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, to be in the play, you should come down and meet the director." And I said, "Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think so." And he said, No, you'd be great. It'd be fun because you're very outgoing and, it would be fun. And so anyway, I got a call like 2 days later, and John says to me, like, "Where are you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I thought you were going to come down and meet with this director. His name is Herman Zuckerman and all this." And I said, "Oh, okay, fine. All right, I'll come down and meet the guy. I don't know." I said, "I'm filthy. I have grease all over me." He said, "Don't worry about it." So I went down. And it was like 5 lines in the play. And basically, I played the shore patrolman who comes and gets the captain's goat back from the drunk sailors who have stole the captain's goat. But we used a live goat on stage every night, and it guaranteed a laugh. And as soon as I heard that laughter, I remember the first time I did it, I got out there with the goat, and of course the goat was nervous as I was, and the goat crapped all over the stage, and everybody laughed. And I just said, "Oh my God, people are laughing." But they're not laughing at me, they're laughing with me because it was pretty funny. And I said, "Hey, this is pretty cool." So while all that was going on, all the guys in the play, and it's an all-male play. It's like, whatever it is, 12 guys, 13 guys. And they asked me, "What do you want to put in the playbill, in the program?" And I said, "Well, just put down that I work in a local gas station." And they said, No, it has to pertain to theater. It has to be something in the theater." And I said, "What? I said, "What's the name of a good acting school?" And they said, "Well, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts." That sounds bitchin' on paper. So I said, "Okay, well, put down that I intend to attend the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in the fall." Good enough. So then they did, of course. And then I worked at a local gas station. And then my mom came to see the play. And she came backstage, of course, with flowers. Oh, honey, you were so good. And she said, and what's this? And I said, oh, that's bullshit. That's just something all the guys told me to put in the thing. And she says, well, if you want to go, I'll pay for it. Wow. So I was like, I left skid marks out of my hometown. I was gone. I was like a top fuel dragster leaving my town. So, and that brought me to New York City the fall. I actually did go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in the fall. I went down by myself on the train. I had to audition, and I had to do a dramatic piece, and I had to do a comedic piece, and I had to do Shakespeare. Woof. And I actually passed. I passed the audition, and they accepted me into the school, and that was it. And then 6 months after that, I took the train back and forth for a while, and then I ended up living in New York. I moved to the city, which was whatever it was, an hour away. So that was it. That's how I get into acting. Hi.
Yeah, I was just thinking, with your voice, have you ever done any 40s, 50s era mafia roles?
I've done a lot of mafia roles, and I don't do that many voiceovers. I have voiced over stuff before. My voice, the biggest voiceover I ever did. Do you remember? I forget what channel it was on. I guess it was on the E channel because it was called the E True Hollywood Story of So and So. Do you remember those things? And they were, 10 years, 15 years back. I voiced over the 2-hour, the E True Hollywood Story of David Chase and the Sopranos. So I voiced over that 2-hour thing, and that was the biggest voiceover thing I ever did. So, because David Chase said, I gotta have that voice. So that was it. And as far as me playing bad guys on camera or mob guys on camera, lots of times. Yeah. I always have a good time with it. Because it comes easy for me. It's just fun. Okay. Have I ever driven a race car? Yeah. Yes. What do you consider a race car? I've driven, go-karts. I've driven, straight on, just direct drive go-karts, and then I've also driven shifter karts, which are fun. Well, you're an inch and a half off the ground, and they go 110 miles an hour, so you're going fast. And then I've also driven, what do they call the miniature? Not vintage. What do they call them? I'll come up with the name in a second. No, they're not go-karts. They have a full body on them, but they're miniature. And they're called, I'll get it in a second. And they have 1,300cc Yamaha engines in them, and they're 5-speed sequential gearbox where you just keep hitting it. About 95. And then I have driven, in school, I have driven a bush car. But there's all kind of restrictions and rules when you're in school. You can only pass on a straightaway. You cannot pass in a turn. They don't even want you near another car in a turn because, they don't want these cars wrecked. They only have so many cars, and they don't want you to destroy them. And if you destroy a car, how you gonna replace it, son? Yeah. So I've gotten to drive some race cars. Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. At 65, I'm gonna compete in the Indy 500. No, I don't think so.
All it takes is a plan to.
Yeah. Put your mind to it, son. You can do it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd like to drive something in a straight line, though. I'd like to drive someday. I'd like to drive maybe. I've driven a super stock car in a straight line in drag racing. I'd like to drive a pro modified car.
What's your fantasy car?
My fantasy drive?
Fantasy car.
For the street or for race car?
Either.
Probably a nitro funny car. To drive a nitro funny car in a straight line for, 1,000. Well, they used to race 1,320 feet. Now they only race to 1,000 feet because all the tracks got too short for the shutdown. So they cut it all off now. for Top Fuel and funny cars, they only race to 1,000 feet. You don't know the difference. You can't tell because they go 327 miles an hour, and from 0 to 327 in 1,000 feet, and you need some shutdown area.